Everybody, hope you're having an amazing day. This is Dr. Heather Cardin from Ask Dr. Heather. So I know I've taken a couple days off. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to get caught up if you missed some of the other 30-day live videos that I did. Today, as we discussed earlier, I'm going to talk about your adrenal glands. They are super, super important. I honestly think I could probably talk 8 hours on your adrenal glands. They are that important. So a little bit about myself. If you're brand new to Ask Dr. Heather, I started my blog about 9 years ago that turned into a newspaper column that actually turned into a Facebook Live and a blog. So I found myself patients not having enough time and asking lots of questions. Why this? Why that? Because their normal doctor said nothing was wrong. Why are they experiencing this? As a functional medicine doctor, we don't treat letters. So you can think about what that means. We actually treat the imbalances in the body, and we work to remove the interferences that are causing the signs, symptoms that can lead to ultimately disease. So as you know, I always start with food because our body needs food to make its own natural pharmacy, so to speak. We know we can go about 2 minutes without oxygen before we pass out and ultimately die. We can go about 3 days without water depending on what your hydration state is, how optimally your body functions with water. We can go 15, 20, 30 days depending on how much stored fat you have without food. So your adrenal glands are little glands that sit on top of your kidneys. They are super, super important. They're also known as the suprarenal glands. You guys have heard me talk often that the thyroid is the ignition for your body. Your adrenal glands are little glands that sit on top of your kidney. They're super tiny, but super, super important. So oftentimes this can be the missing link that's causing havoc on your body. So we're going to talk a little bit about adrenal anatomy, a little bit about symptoms, and then a few helpful tips, and then how you get them tested. Because I definitely don't want someone guessing it's your adrenal glands, but if you're suspecting your adrenal glands are off, then definitely see a healthcare provider that's in your area that maybe focuses on endocrine or focuses on hormonal function and not just giving you shots of estrogen or just giving you other types of hormones just in injections or sublingual tablets. Because we want to help your body manufacture its own hormones. It was actually designed to do that. So we take the food, we break it down, it goes through a bunch of cycles, and our body makes its own hormones. It makes its own anti-inflammatory hormones. It secretes its own growth hormones. It repairs its own body, its own bone, its own skin, its integrity. We get all that from the foods that we eat. So let's talk about your adrenals. First of all, they're called suprarenals, and I call them the engine of your body because that's exactly what they do. The outside of your adrenal gland, again, sitting right on top of your kidney, is called the cortex. You don't have to know these. There's no quiz later. But the cortex has 3 really layers to it. One secretes aldosterone synthesis. So super, super important for helping your sex hormones, for helping control your cortisol levels, so your normal anti-inflammatory hormones. The second thing that the cortex releases is actually mineral corticotropin hormones. So it helps control your mineral balance. So if you're a person that says, it's just normal for my blood pressure to be low, and you know that you're not exercising to have a lower blood pressure, or if you go from standing to sitting, you kind of get lightheaded, that's called orthostatic hypertension. That is not normal. Maybe it's normal for you, but that's an indication that your adrenal glands may not be functioning optimally because the adrenal glands cortex controls our mineral corticotropin hormone. So when you go from sitting to standing, you use a lot more muscles, your blood flow, you're at a higher elevation than gravity, so your heart's got to pump higher. Your blood pressure should actually go up. You shouldn't see stars if you're doing a down dog or doing some burpees, or if you jump out of bed too quick because your baby cries or the cat wants out. Your blood pressure should actually rise if it's functioning properly. The other thing it does is secrete DHEA, which is our anti-aging hormone, and also androgen, which is super important in males and females, which we know cholesterol breaks down into DHEA, which breaks down into androgen, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So it's a huge function. We talk about the releasing hormones. Those actually come from the brain. So the limbic system is our emotional system. The hypothalamus is the master switch. The pituitary gland secretes a lot of releasing hormones. So it secretes ACTH, which is adrenocorticotropin hormone. So we'll call it ACTH, which tells your adrenal glands, hey, we're in fear for ourselves. The house is on fire. We need to get out. Let's make rational decisions. Your cortisol, your epinephrine, your brain tells you to do that through our ACTH, or adrenal corticotropin hormone. It also controls our cortisol. Cortisol helps regulate our rhythm of the day. So when we're sleeping, or let's just say about between 8 and 10 o'clock at night, our cortisol level starts to go down. That's to tell our body it's time to rest. We don't need energy. We're going to sleep. And then about midnight, it starts to repair. And then it should be the highest in the morning when you wake up about 6 a.m. So it should not be, if you're the night owl, that is the wrong system for cortisol. People say, oh, I've always been a night owl. Well, that tells me that your adrenal or your circadian rhythm has always been off, because you should get super sleepy as the sun goes down. You should get tired. You should not be able to function and drive. Another sign might be that, as the nighttime comes, all the reflectors start to bother you. Or if you shine a flashlight in your eye and your pupils oscillate, they actually should just constrict and stay constricted. But if you have a nighttime problem, or like the reflector lights on the highway seem blurry, or other people's car lights seem blurry, that's another sign that your adrenal glands may be out of balance. So the cortex is super important. So the cortex, again, controls our aldosterone synthesis. It controls our mineral corticotropin hormones, or mineral corticoids, which helps control our blood pressure, fluid, edema, attention buildup, swelling, things like that. It also controls our DHEA, which is our anti-aging hormone, which leads into androgen, and our cortisol, which is a natural rhythm to our body. The medulla, which is actually the center of the adrenal gland, secretes our sympathetic nervous system. So that fight or flight mode, that epinephrine, norepinephrine, to help keep and check our balance. So if it's out of balance and you're always overstimulated, always stressed, then it's like the pedal stuck to the metal and your brain can't calm down, you cannot rest, your body ages quicker than you know, which can also ultimately mess with your body's natural metabolism. So that's really just the 101 of our adrenal glands. Hopefully that's some new words to some of you, or some familiar words. Again, it's the engine for our body. It can be secreted through hormones and turned on through that, or again through our limbic system, which are emotional symptom. So how does it get out of balance, or what are the signs? I'm going to go over the signs first. I went to look them up because I know these pretty well offhand, and I found like 72. So I'm going to go over the top ones that maybe most of you might be experiencing. Fatigue is number one. So if we know your cortisol level is off, which helps metabolize that cortisol rhythm, or your sex hormones are off, it's going to make you tired, like you cannot get out of bed. You don't get restful sleep, you stop and drop. Maybe you go to the gym and you feel super amped up, and then you're amped after the gym. That's because your cortisol's way out of balance. Or if you're the person who does anything and you stop and drop, so the minute you sit down, whether it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 6 p.m., you are done for the day. That's another sign your adrenals may be out of balance. Also, anxiety. Think about the cortisol level being upside down, so you're actually awake. If your cortisol level is low during the day, that's where it should be at night. If it's high at night, it should actually be low. So it causes lots of anxiety, lots of brain fog, lots of dysfunction, where, you forget your name, or if you get a birth date, or you just can't find those words, because your brain is upside down and it's actually talking when it's asleep and sleeping when it should be talking, if that makes sense, because your cortisol level is flip-flopped. Also, a lot of dizziness we talked about, like that orthostatic hypertension. If you stand up too quick or do burpee, or you get the slightest bit dehydration, get super, super dizzy really easy. So vertigo, Meniere's disease, oftentimes you start treating the adrenal glands, it actually will help that Meniere's go away. Also, depression. We talked about anxiety. The reverse of that is depression. And then we see that the adrenal glands start actually crushing, or really causing the thyroid to be out of balance, because they're sister hormones, or sister glands as endocrine glands. So the thyroid starts the body, and the adrenal glands keep us going all day. Frequent tired, again, anything that you do, you simply carry a load of laundry, you simply unload the dishwasher, and you're super exhausted. And there's no reason for that, because your immune system is fine, your white blood cell count is fine, you have no metabolic disease that's been diagnosed. Extreme joint stiffness, that'll come from your mineral corticoid being out of balance as well. So stiffness, it can be, again, dark circles underneath your eyes because you're not sleeping. Sometimes even the lines and grooves on your fingertips can also be a sign that the adrenal glands are out of balance. It also is mineral balance, so the mineral corticotropin hormone from the cortex of the adrenal glands. Also, loss of muscle tone, because if our cortisol level is off, we know that our body's not properly processing amino acids. Amino acids actually break down and help make our skin, our hair, our integrity, and the muscle of our body. So you don't want to overeat it, but definitely need to eat within balance. So if the cortisol level's off, whether it's too high or too low, whether it's flip-flop the wrong time of day, you definitely need to find out where that level is. And we're going to talk about testing in just a minute, but you could experience muscle loss. Maybe you're at the gym all the time and your weight is totally stuck. You've been eating a low-carb, high-fat, ketogenic diet, or maybe you have a hidden food allergy that's not coming in the symptom of your throat swells up, or your tongue swells up, or you're having lots of bowel irritation, but you're just constantly tired because your body's sending out little histamine receptors saying, oh, fight that, that's an egg allergy, fight it, it's an almond allergy, which overdrains your adrenal glands and makes them like they're working 24/7 all the time. We talked about blood pressure being out of balance, too high or too low, or flip-flopping when you go from laying down to standing or sitting to standing. Also libido, I'm going to call it, I don't think I have very many kids that follow me on Ask Dr. Heather, but if our androgen synthesis comes from the cortisol of our adrenal gland, and our cortex also controls our androgen, which breaks our DHA, which breaks down into estrogen and testosterone, it makes sense that our libido is going to be off. We're going to prematurely age. You can see decrease in menses for women. You can see early andropause, that's male menopause, andropause for men, either losing hair, hair turning gray, getting belly fat, getting breast fat for males sometimes, or women getting chin hairs or facial hairs or hair around your chest where you don't want it. So all those are little signs that something's out of balance, which is your endocrine system. Generally, if it's significantly out of balance, then we call it an autoimmune disease, which we're not going to go to and talk about an adrenal tumor, because most of the people we know today are super out of balance with their adrenal glands and don't know how to get it fixed because either they can't find a practitioner or they try to help self themselves. So let's talk about that. So, craving of food or no appetite at all, fatigue without cause of fatigue, like you didn't drive 24 hours straight, you're fatigued after you work out, you're fatigued after you wake up, you're fatigued after you eat, you have an increase in energy at night for some unknown reason, you have muscle weakness, you're not progressing in your workouts, or the laundry sounds super hard, or you're actually short of breath simply just going up the stairs. That's the engine in your body saying, whoa, we need to take a huge break and slow down. So number one is most important. If you have any of these signs or symptoms, because the adrenal gland, again, is a suprarenal, it is the engine for our body, and it can get out of balance from several ways. So it can get out of balance from stress in your life. Maybe you lived through a tornado and your house burned down, or maybe you lost a child or a loved one, or 2 or 3 of those. Or maybe you just do not like your job. You've been there for 20 years. So 9 to 5, you do not like your job. Maybe your family relationships are not what they should be, and you've been there for 20 or 30 years. Maybe you had a stressful childhood. Maybe you had cancer. Maybe you had Lyme's disease. Maybe you had chronic fatigue. Maybe you had, again, hidden allergies, tonsillitis. You've had, other organs of your body's taken out. Your cycles are off and you're on hormone replacement. Any of those things are actually stressors for our body, because our body should naturally make those own hormones. It should naturally control our mineral balance. It should naturally control our temperature and metabolism. It should naturally make a rhythm for our cortisol. But because we go, and we're exposed to over 150,000 before we even walk out the door, and then plus now all the blue light from the computers and phones and overstimulation and multitasking, our bodies are simply stressed out. So how do we start healing them? Well, number one, get testing done. I can't tell you how many times people just suspected and bought some supplements because they heard me say something, or someone else said something, or read an article, and they took this and they actually got worse, because the signs of a hyperadrenal gland and a hypoadrenal gland, so hypo means it's not functioning, it's just kind of flatlining, and one that's hyper, where actually the pedal is stuck, it's just go. The symptoms are the same. They're both chronic fatigue. They're both loss of energy. They both can be headaches. They both can be loss of lean muscle mass. So it's super important to get them tested. My favorite test is actually to do the Dutch test. And what that is it checks 4 different dried urine tests. You can also do a saliva test called the Adrenal Stress Index, which was super popular for a good 10 to 15, 20 years. We still do in our office if that's how someone's had their baseline done. And I often encourage people, don't wait till you're super sick to have it done. Get that done pretty quickly, because it can really tell you what's happening throughout your whole body for the adrenal cortex and the adrenal medulla. It'll tell us if you're actually robbing from Peter to pay Paul, from the thyroid gland, or from your brain or pituitary, and can tell us a lot about the history. So number one, get a good diagnosis. Just a one-shot cortisol blood work done at like 8 a.m. at your doctor's office is not enough, because it's circadian rhythm of our body. If you have that stop and drop thing between 1 and 3, that's the time that our cortisol level should be naturally coming down. And again, resting for the rest of the day, because we've been up since 6 a.m. So it makes sense at 2 p.m., 8 hours after we've been up, it should really start going down. But some people drop abruptly, or they never even reach that peak of high cortisol, and it starts to drop back down, or we don't have enough DHEA, which is actually manufactured from cholesterol in our liver. So there's a whole big story going on here. So number one, get testing done. Do not self-help yourself with adrenal supplements, because you can make yourself worse if you're going to take like adrenal adaptogens, like doing a whole bunch of andrographis, or a whole bunch of ginseng, a whole bunch of gotu kola. You can absolutely make yourself worse. Or if you start doing some phosphatidylcholine, that can ask, or P5P, I'm going to say, that can make your body's super worse, or licorice extract because you read you had the symptoms of hypo, you thought, but actually you were hyper. So get the testing done, get with a functional medicine doctor that does some endocrine testing and not just a one-time blood test. You need to have it checked 4 to 5 times throughout the day. And then how do we get started? So number 1 is diet. The food that we eat breaks down and makes our hormones. It's what feeds our adrenal glands. So if you want your adrenal gland to function properly, you should actually feed your adrenal glands. So eliminate all processed foods. I know I am not the first one to say that, and this is not the first time I've said it, but this is so true. You want to help your body feel better, skip the processed stuff. So cut out, even like if you're doing a ketogenic diet, the salami, the pastrami, the pepperonis, some of that prepackaged food, cut it out. Cut out anything that overstresses your body to have to digest and break it down. So maybe you bought organic broccoli and then you put Velveeta on top. Velveeta is not a food, right? We all know that. That organic broccoli is super important, but you put that toxic Velveeta on top and all the body says is, oh, I got to attack that Velveeta. It's not real food. I've got to get it out of my body. There's no nutritional out. Like, get it out of the way. And it stops about the beautiful broccoli that you bought, or the piece of salmon, or a piece of chicken that you had, or steak, or lovely organic mushrooms. And it's focused on always stressing out. Or if you're eating on the go, so stop eating on the go. If you're bottom of the bag fries, you don't even know what you had, you're go, eat. You've got to slow down. And diet number 1, 80% of our diet dictates the overall function of our entire body. Yes, sleep is a secret weapon, but you've got to eat the food to make the proper hormones to get your body sleeping. So do some intermittent fasting. Why? Because every time we eat, we use our stress glands. So there's more nerves in our gut than our spinal cord. Hopefully you guys have that memorized by now. So what happens is if you're eating and snacking all day long, your body is working. You're feeding, working. Your nervous system is going. It never has a time to chillax, so to speak. So if you do intermittent fasting and eat in a shorter window, then it gives your body more time to rest and repair, get the gut digested before you go to bed, eliminate all sugar, even natural sugar like honey and fruits. All fruits break down to alcohol. There's no essential carbohydrate. We've all talked about that before. So when you're eating foods that have non-food value to your body, which means your body can't break it down and make anything necessary, can't make any of the hormones that it needs, why are we eating it? Yeah, I know it tastes good, but wouldn't you rather feel good than have it taste good? And we know it takes 9 to 11 times to taste something to actually decide if we actually like it or not. So processed food, processed sugar, anything with preservatives, read the back, but even if you buy it at like Whole Foods, but if you buy it there, you can still get stuff that's processed. Red dye number this, number that, honey in this, molasses there. Somebody showed me something of a keto bar, I'm not going to say what company, and it had 4 different ways it listed sugar, from fructose to sucralose to cane sugar to honey, or molasses as well. So make sure you're reading that and just buying whole foods. I know everyone says shop the perimeter of the store. It is totally true. 3 heads of cabbage is like 9 carbs. Like, I don't know, 15 cloves of celery is like 2 carbs, and celery is super good for your adrenal glands. So on that lab work, what you'll also find is you'll see the trend of the sodium actually going down. Sodium going down and potassium going up. I confused myself for a minute. So that's also a trend of seeing your adrenal glands are out of balance, especially if you're not taking any supplements. The sodium starts to drop because it controls the mineralocorticotropin hormone in the adrenal cortex. And then we see the potassium actually start to go up to help compensate, because sodium, potassium, ATPase, so sodium, potassium, we all know what that is. That actually is used every single time you eat a carbohydrate. So it makes sense if you eat less carbohydrates, you're going to stress that sodium potassium pump less, which is super important for driving the energy to the adrenal gland. So clean diet. If you suspect any food allergies, I can't tell you how many times people say, well, I was allergic to dairy as a child. They took my tonsils out, adenoids out. I still have like this stuff in the back of my throat, and I still have like cough and seasonal stuff, but I'm sure it's not what I'm eating. I'm sure it's in the environment. I can tell you what, I cannot control the way the wind blows. I cannot control the way leaves and ragweed goes, but you can definitely control what you put in your mouth. So if you have a mold allergy, stop eating moldy foods like cheeses and vinegars. If you have a wheat allergy, things like barley and grass actually irritate you on environmental testing. It's wheat, right? It all grows the same way. If you know you're allergic to walnuts, then simply don't eat them. I know people are like, oh, I grew out of that allergy. You didn't really grow out of it. Your body just actually swindled it around a different way, and now it's going to a different organ, because your body is super smart. It adapts, and your adrenal glands are the adaptogen in your body, so it'll adapt. If one system gets worn out, it tries to shift it to another system to allow one to heal. The second thing is mind and body. We talked about that go, it's stress, and you're uber tired. So number 1, modify your calendar for the next 90 days. I have all my patients do this. So identify where your stress is. What time do you wake up? What time do you go to bed? Are you getting at least 7, no more than 9 hours of sleep? Do you have good sleep hygiene to help your body get to sleep? Are you having to do all sorts of tricks and watch TV shows? You know, are you taking melatonin, things like that your body naturally makes in the presence of darkness? So mind and body, start doing more yoga. If you have hypoadrenia, the worst thing you can do is go get on the treadmill and run, or go to kickboxing, or go to CrossFit, or train for ultra marathon or bicycle or swim race, whatever. That over training actually continues to adapt to tax out your adrenal glands. So shift to things like yoga, shift to things that's more breathing. So if you know you're a shallow breather, that's one side, your adrenal glands are out of balance. You're always trying to catch up, right? Like you just took the laundry upstairs and you're out of breath, but you can still run 5 miles. Or if you feel better after you run and then you super crash, that's another sign your adrenal glands are exhausted. You tapped into every last bit of energy and then it just crashed. And that sleeping crash is saying, I got to take a break. And this is, again, as long as you've ruled out chronic viruses, other things like that. But chronic viruses like Epstein-Barr, herpes, Lyme disease, food allergies that have gone on a long time, or maybe you had strep for a long time as a kid, any of these things can actually lead to overstressing your immune system, causing your adrenal glands to overwork, and then they never have time to catch up. So chill out on your exercise. Start doing more breathing, more mind body, more meditation, more gratitude, and really turn the frown upside down, because all that takes so much out of your adrenal glands. So set your intentions and set your goals, and thank your body for the jobs that it does perform, not the jobs that it can't perform. Like, I really want to get the yard raked today, but I just can't do it. Then I'm going to say, that's great for you. You listen to your body. Your body's saying, whoa, stop that. Don't do it. Take yourself off a couple of committees. Your kids are going to be with you your whole entire life. You always have time to get onto another committee or make yourself an alternate. And so if somebody does maybe have something come up, then you can actually jump in. So I know as a mom of 4 kids, I know how easy that is, because you want to make all the balance and be in all the kids stuff and be the classroom mom for everybody and all the parties. But honestly, I had to go to a rotation basis for my kids, and they knew that. Like the 8th grade year was that child's year. The 5th grade year was that child's year. 2nd grade confirmation, first communion, that was that child's year. So we just rotated through it, and everyone seemed fine with it. I announced it to the kids, like, always in 5th grade, who's ever in 5th grade, I'm going to be that helper mom that year. So I wasn't trying to do everybody's grades at everybody's time, because that certainly wears out your body. So mind-body connection, super, super important. Do some forgiveness work, do some gratitude work, do some random acts of kindness to help get those happy endorphins turned back on. It takes the stress off of the cortex, or the middle of that, the medulla, the middle of the adrenal glands, because it's always being tapped out. That epinephrine, norepinephrine, that fight or flight, you're always being defensive. You're always engaged in argument. You know, think about those happy people, that baby that wakes up that's all super giggly. It doesn't care if the house burned down. It's just happy to be alive. So that can be super important for that mind-body connection with your adrenal glands. There's a brand new book out that my friend Amberly Largo wrote. I'll post it down below. It's Through Grit and Glory. She has an amazing story of how she's overcome triumph with her faith through God. It's called Grit and Glory. I will put the book down below. It's just released. The next thing is sleep. So sleep is that secret weapon. Again, your body knows how to go to sleep. Think of the babies that sleep all the time. And if you need more sleep, it's actually okay. If you're needing a nap in the middle of the day, it's okay, but not a 3-hour nap, just a 15 to 20 minute power nap. Get your room dark, rip out the electronics, even turn your clock around if it's too bright, or put the buzzer outside the door if you're afraid you're going to oversleep. I even took I think I told you guys, my salt lamp out because the light was disrupting. I have it on all during the day, but I definitely turn it off at night. My essential oil lamp I turn off at night, or I hide it so it's super dark, or move it to another room. All those things are absolutely fine. Meditation. I love the brain tap, is super good for helping your body recirculate and get into that normal rhythm of having more energy and sleeping better. And the last thing is really supplementation. We have to fix it through lifestyle, and then we absolutely have to fix it through supplementation. I have never found a person who's been able to heal their adrenal glands. Just a second. Yeah. Bye. Sorry, I guess I'm going a little bit longer than I had suspected. So anyway, I hope that this has brought a little bit of value to your overall health. Because again, people like, I've gone to the doctor and nobody knows what's wrong. I've had all these battery of tests. Well, you want those ranges to be in the optimal range. So let's talk about sodium, potassium, because that's that first indication that the adrenal glands may be off. And that would be that your sodium level should be 140 to 144. The lab says 135 to 145. When it hits below 135, they're going to put an IV bag and some saline in you. But optimal is 140 to 144. potassium should be 4.0 to 4.4. If it gets high, like 4.7, and you're not on supplementation, that's a really big indication that your adrenal glands are probably out of balance, and some further testing needs to be done. Not necessarily an ultrasound, but definitely have some urine or saliva testing done, and you need to check it throughout that 24-hour period to see what's happening. There's also a test where you do a 24-hour urine collection, and they see what the amount of cortisol is that's excreted overall in that 24-hour period. I personally like getting the 6 a.m., the noon, the 7 p.m., and then the midnight value, because that tells me what the cortisol level's doing, what your testosterone's doing, what your 17-hydroxyprogesterone's doing, what your androgens are doing, what your estrogen's doing, all in relationship to cortisol. It is that important, guys. No, most insurance companies do not cover it. I saw that question, but sometimes your health it's cheaper than an emergency room visit, I would say that. And it's also more economical than missing days and days of work, or missing birthday parties, or important things because you're tired and you can't figure it out. So sometimes just look back at your health history. If you're 30 or 40 years old and said, you know what, I had acne all during high school, or I had chronic ear infection, chronic sinus infections, or maybe in college I got Epstein-Barr, I got mono, those things can all lead to your body being out of balance because your adrenal glands had to work so hard because we try to function through our illness. So any type of chronic condition still going on, whether it is something like Epstein-Barr or Lyme's disease or hepatitis or, HIV or chronic, just chronic allergies in general. I say that because so many people have allergies. Headaches are another big trigger that your adrenal glands are out of balance. So those are just a few things you guys can do. Sorry, this is falling out, that help you identify really what's happening. I know we did an extensive list on thyroid. If you missed that one, you can go to my blog, AskDrHeather.net. It's free to go to. It's free to sign up. So it is not perfect. If you find typos, please don't tell me. I had somebody send me a whole bunch of typos. So anyway, sorry about that. I just thought that was kind of funny because I'm not perfect. And don't confuse better for perfect. I've kind of gotten over that after this many decades of living. So hopefully this kind of ties in between your thyroid and your adrenal glands. Please feel free to share this page. Please feel free to invite people. You have total permission to do that. Please feel free to go to my blog and sign up for the newsletter. I am going to put Amber Lee's book out on my blog today, so a few thousand of you guys can see it. I'll post it down here below. She's on Instagram, not mostly on Facebook. Instagram, Amber Lee Largo, AMBERLYLARGO. Her amazing triumph. I just love reading inspirational books. It makes my day to hear what other people have overcome. So sometimes it makes your tragedies and triumphs not seem so big sometimes, but again, it's your perspective and it's your body and what you're living in. So I'm super excited to be back on here. Not my 30-day challenge. Somebody asked for more recipes, so I'm posting a lot more recipes this month on AskDrHeather.net. They are all gluten-free, 100%. 98% are dairy-free, 99% are soy-free, and so you should find some good value and keep it super simple. So let me know what you guys would like to hear next. This is Dr. Heather from Ask Dr. Heather saying have a lovely, lovely Tuesday. I look forward to hearing from you. Again, the blog was designed for you. Ask, act, achieve. So you ask the question, what's up with my thyroid? What's up with my adrenal glands? What's a suprarenal? Why is it wrecking havoc on my entire body? And why is it such an important endocrine organ? Well, hopefully I answered some of those nuggets today for you in simple layman's term. Now your job is to act on it. Maybe go back, listen to it, take a few notes. I will post a blog tomorrow with this video about the adrenal gland. So I'm always trying to do that, do a live here, switch it to YouTube, and then have a written version so that you can share that as well. So I love hearing from you guys. Let me know what you want to talk about next. I think I'm going to cover food allergies next because that's a really hot topic this time of year. If you know you're allergic to mold, so this is a high time for mold coming up in the spring for Kansas, or as things start to unthaw, or the Midwest, I should say, then it makes sense that you shouldn't eat moldy food like cheeses and yogurts and kombucha and sauerkraut, because those actually are moldy foods as well. So you can't control where the air blows, but you can definitely control what you're putting in your mouth. So thank you guys for having an amazing day. Thanks for hanging on with me over this 20 minutes. I try to be less than 10 to 15 minutes every time, but I have like pages of notes over here. I had 5 or 6 pages pulled up over here because I think everything is so important. So I'm here to help you fight your adrenal fatigue, help you find a physician that works in your area. Look for a functional endocrine physician or wellness physician, and they should be able to help you along your way towards optimal health, or I'll help you any way that I can. So have an amazing day. I look forward to hearing from you guys soon.